Ludlam.
All set? All right. Can we please get a current cost estimate for the unit price of an F-35 Joint Strike Fighter? And I'm asking in the context of cost reductions that the US President appears to have negotiated with the contractors and also possibly the government of Japan. So what are we looking at here in Australia?
Senator Ludlam, I'll wait for ADM Gordon to come to the desk.
All right.
This is popped up right now.
I think the Japanese government, and this is just open source reporting, appear to have negotiated a 6 to 7% reduction per aircraft, which is similar to what's happened in the US.
Senator, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, no trouble. I'm looking for the current estimate of the unit cost of an F-35 Joint Strike Fighter for Australia.
Air Vice Marshal Lee Gordon, the head of the Joint Strike Fighter Division. Our cost model is based on an average unit flyaway cost of 90 million US.
90 million US, is that a reduction? Is that a reduction on the last time you were asked that question?
No, Senator, that hasn't changed.
Okay. So the changes, and maybe, I don't know whether you were listening in from the other room or not, there appears to be a cost reduction in the United States and Japan. Has that not flowed through to the Australian proposed purchase?
Senator, the most recent negotiated price for an F-35A is 94.6 million. We're predicting, and that price is a reduction for Lot 10 from the previous lots, and that price, of course, has flowed through to Australia. We're estimating that there will be further reductions in the F-35 price, and indeed yesterday at the Avalon Air Show, General Bogdan set the goal of an average price for an F-35A of $80 million. Previously he'd been aiming at 85 million. So we do expect that those reductions will flow on to us.
Okay, what does that amount to as the total capital cost or the total purchase price before we get into sustainment for the whole fleet?
I'm sorry, Senator, I don't quite understand.
Total cost of the acquisition.
What's the total cost for the project?
The total estimated cost.
The current project cost, approved project cost, is 17.2 billion.
Right, and if the reductions all the way down to 80 million come through, what would we be looking at then?
Senator, I'd have to calculate that. I'm sorry.
No dramas. And is that just acquisition or is that sustainment over the life of the plane?
That's the acquisition cost, sir.
Okay, and what's the estimated total sustainment cost over the life of the aircraft?
We don't have an estimate for the total life of sustainment at the moment, Senator. We have an approval for sustainment into the early 2020s, and then we're due to come back to government with the figures for the life.
Okay. There's estimates floating around. I don't know how reliable they are. There are estimates floating around for the total sustainment cost of the submarines. How come you can't even provide us with an estimate for the aircraft?
We have an estimate, but I wouldn't put that as a figure at a set estimate inquiry as to what it will be.
Why is this a secret? This is a budget estimates committee. This is what we're meant to do.
I'll have to take it on notice what the figure is, Senator, but at the moment the approval from government was to the early 2020s.
And what's the estimated life of the aircraft? For how far into the future would they be operating?
We're estimating their life of type will be around the 30 to 35 years.
Okay. So you don't even have an estimate of 90% of the estimated life of the aircraft as to what they're going to cost? I guess, can you just take on notice to provide us with the figure? If you don't have it with you, that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yes, sir.
Right. The two aircraft that flew into Australia the other day that I gather are now down at Avalon and will be for the next little while, what are their capabilities? Are they just training aircraft or are they ready to fly into battle? What can they and can't they do?
Senator, those two aircraft have the Block 3I software loaded on them, which is not the 3F software that we will have delivered in our Block 10 aircraft, which we are going to take to IOC.
Just help me out with the acronyms.
To our initial operation capability in December 2020. So there are some additional capabilities that will be delivered between now and when that Block 3F software is loaded.
Right.
So, so they're not the capability that we've agreed with government to deliver for that initial combat.
This is just these two aircraft that I'm talking about now.
That's right.
Apart from the software from 3I to 3F, do they lack anything else?
It's mainly software, Senator.
So what else?
They've recently released weapons in the US. And as the program rolls out the final capabilities as part of the system design and development demonstration phase, those will be applied to those aircraft.
But airframe, the hardware is identical to what will be the final build of the aircraft. Software, weapons.
The hardware is largely identical. There are some minor elements that are still going through their final firming up of the design, but they're small elements. Over 95% of the aircraft is physically set.
All right. Maybe in order to not tie us up any longer here, if you could just table a little bit of detail about what's in that other 5%, just in case it becomes important later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator.
So I gather from previous sessions on this aircraft that stealth is really its number one attribute. It's been criticised on a whole range of grounds and as being an inferior aircraft to other fifth and even fourth generation aircraft, but stealth has always been posed as its area of superiority, I suppose.
Air Force to take you through that, because it, like always, it's a bit more complex than that.
That's
and there's
right.
a bit more to the answer, but I think you'll be able to give that.
I turn up to learn stuff. That's fine.
Senator, Air Marshal Lee Davies, Chief Air Force. Low observability is an element, is a design feature of the F-35. It is an important element to allow the aircraft to be able to see a potential enemy and take the first action. The other large parts of the F-35 makeup that make it fifth generation, its ability to coordinate and integrate disparate elements of sensors into one picture and then distribute that picture to any number of aircraft, ships and land components.
So it's being described as a node in a network rather than a singular
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah, okay. But its ability to not be seen has been cited in these hearings and widely elsewhere as being one of its key capabilities.
It is one of its key capabilities, agreed.
All right, so have you come across, because I only recently came across this, but you guys do this for a living, a Chinese radar system known as a quantum radar, which would completely make obsolete the stealth capabilities of the aircraft? They're not deployed, but it's just being written up in the defence press as something that exists.
I read the same article, Senator. For as long as we've been fighting, we've had evolutions of different elements. That's range, accuracy, detection. This is a report that at this point we have no foundation, no substantiation of. Are there developments that will reduce the effect of low observable technologies over the next 20 or 30 years? It would be ridiculous to say there are not.
Yep.
But at this point, it's not simply a question of saying there is a new radar, therefore the F-35 is obsolete.
That's not what this article says, and it's not what I'm putting to you.
Okay. It is an effect of an entire kill chain. It's about being detected. It's then the part of anyone who would want to, in this case, affect the F-35 or its mission would then need to track it, would need to be able to hold it long enough to be able to have an effect on that aircraft. There are a set of circumstances that would go to the F-35 being obsolete in that context. Therefore, at this point, we are not concerned with the report
Okay.
in terms of the F-35 being ineffective.
I'm getting the wind up by the chair, so I might put these last two on notice if I may. So firstly, just in relation to what we're discussing here, could you provide us with any evidence that you have taken to validate that claim? You don't seem overly concerned.
Not at this point, no.
Yep. So if you can provide us with the basis of your confidence that it's not going to render a $17 billion investment obsolete within the life of the aircraft, I'd appreciate it. And then the final one, which I guess as these aircraft arrive in Australia is going to become more and more relevant, there's a lot of reporting about the weight of the helmets, that low body weight pilots might find their spine snapped if they're caused to eject. Firstly, are you aware of those claims? And secondly, what can you tell us? What's your view of them?
So the helmet is extremely effective. Our 4 pilots have been flying with the helmet. They have no issue with the helmet in terms of weight or their ability to eject should they need to.
Has anybody actually ejected out of one of these aircraft or in a simulator with that helmet on?
No, they
So
have not.
how are you able to make that claim?
The claim is actually, Senator, around not having yet tested below a certain body weight for a pilot. That when that testing occurs, we will find out what the minimum body weight is to meet that criteria.
Is that
At
a
the
computer
moment,
simulation or does somebody have to have their neck broken?
That criteria for our pilots is not an issue.
Thanks very much,